Okay,
The whole thing.
being 7 o'clock or thereabouts, I will call the meeting of the Common Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to
to the republic which it stands, one nation under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
for all.
Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Bisa,
Here.
Mr. Fichet,
Present.
Mr. Zog,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell,
Here.
Mrs. Dean is excused. Ms. Dean, Mr. Barrington,
Present.
Mr. Steinhorst,
Here.
Mr. Pinch,
Here,
Mr. Herder,
Here.
and Mr. Morak.
Here.
And Mayor Hankey is here.
Here. Okay, the first item would be the adoption of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda. Tom O'Connell.
Second by Zog.
Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have authorization to pay bills. Mr. Morak.
Yes, Your Honor. Are we skipping the minutes?
Oh, no. We will next have approval of the March 10th and March 31st council minutes.
Steinhorst, move to approve the minutes of March 10th and March 31st.
Mesaw, second.
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, all those in favor of approving the minutes of March 10th, 2020 and March 31st, 2020, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, let's go on to payment of bills. Mr. Morak.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move we pay bills in the amount of $888,458.99.
Second, Herder.
Barrington.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to pay the bills in the amount of $888,458.99. Are there any questions on any of the bills? I don't hear any. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bisa,
Yay.
Mr. Fichet,
aye.
Mr. Zog,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Ms. Dean absent, Mr. Barrington,
Aye.
Mr. Steinhorst,
Aye.
Mr. Pinch,
Aye.
Mr. Herder,
Aye.
and Mr. Morak.
Okay, the motion has been approved. Next, I'm going to open the public hearing on the resolution to vacate State Street. And I realize that we have no public here, but we requested in the meeting announcement that if any of the public had any comments to contact any alderman. Has anybody heard anything from the public?
I have not. Zog.
Okay, I don't hear of anybody else. We did have a couple of questions from that. People were, with the notice that was in the paper, people were a little bit confused, a couple of business people. And after an explanation by Jackie, that this only affected the Taft Park area of, and the memorial, the Veterans Memorial down there, that they were afraid we were closing the north side of State Street, not from North Water Street down to the river. So that was cleared up. So I will close the public hearing on that if there are no other comments. And we'll move right on to standing and special committees. Board of Public Works, Mr. Barrington.
With the coronavirus, we did not hold a meeting. I move to approve the resolution to vacate State Street.
And a second.
Okay, Mike, could I ask that you reword your motion to approve the resolution to go into effect in 30 days, barring any public objection?
So move.
Dennis, second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution to vacate State Street to go into effect in 30 days, barring any public objections. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bissaw,
Aye.
Mr. Fichet,
Aye.
Mr. Zog,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Mr. Barrington,
Aye.
Mr. Steinhorst,
Aye.
Mr. Pinch,
Aye.
Mr. Herder,
Aye.
and Mr. Morak.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Do you have anything else, Mr. Barrington?
All I have tonight, Your Honor.
Okay,
That's all
thank
for
you.
tonight.
Next, we move on to Finance and Personnel, Mr. Morak.
Thank you, Your Honor. Likewise, the Finance and Personnel did not meet in April, so we had no meeting. In your packet, you had a letter from the city assessor postponing the remaining inspections. And I move we approve the license list for April as presented.
Second by Zog.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the license list as presented. Are there any questions or objections to anything on the license list? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Is there anything else, Mr. Morak?
Nothing else for Finance and Personnel, Your Honor.
Okay, next we move to Park and Recreation, Mr. Bissaw.
Thank you, Your Honor. Due to the virus, there was no April Park and Rec meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bissaw. Next, Planning Commission, Mr. Steinhorst.
Same thing. We did not have a March meeting.
Okay, thank you. Move on to Economic Development, Mr. Morak.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Economic Development Committee met on Thursday, April 9th at 4:30 p.m. with the members present via Zoom. The January 28th, 2020 minutes were approved. Proposed contract with Todd Hutchinson was discussed. The consensus of the committee was to have Mayor Henke, Committee Chair Morak, and City Administrator Leone, a library representative, and Todd Hutchinson meet the next day to go over the questions by the city's legal representative and make the suggested revisions. The document will then be brought back to this committee, to the Economic Development Committee, at its regular April meeting and go to the council in May. Motion was made by Thompson, seconded by Pinch, to approve the revised contract by the committee at its next meeting, that the meeting contract be approved at the next meeting. Motion carried, all yes, no opposed. The 2020 goals list was requested for the next meeting, showing what has been accomplished up to that date. April Kapitsky gave her report on businesses in the city. Due to the COVID-19 virus, 60 businesses in the cities have had to close temporarily. The business economy is frail. There are business owners, there are resources business owners can access. They should call the Chamber of Commerce office for the help on those resources. Kapitsky listed the businesses that are up for sale and also the ones that have new owners. Under the administrator update, Administrator Leone stated the Bazaar After Dark had been postponed before the COVID-19. He met with business owners to meet them. The WEDA deadline had been extended for recruiting businesses to New London. The Downtown Revitalization Committee minutes were included in the packet. There were no questions or comments. And the meeting adjourned at 5:37 p.m. And that's all I have for economic development, Your Honor. You also
Thank
have
you.
a report from the Wapaka County Economic Development Corporation in your minutes, in your packet. That's all I have for economic development.
Okay. Thank you. Why don't you move right on to capital projects?
Okay. All right, we will approve some items that were recommended from the April 13th meeting via Zoom. At that meeting, a motion had been made by Zog, second by Steinhorst, to recommend to council approval of the skid steer in the amount of $50,000. It will have a trade-in value probably around $10,000. And a stump grinder in the amount of $7,500. So tonight, I'll make a motion that we go ahead with the purchase of the skid steer in the amount of $50,000.
Second, O'Connell.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve a motion to approve the recommendation from capital projects to go ahead with purchase of the skid steer. Is there any discussion on that item?
It's an item we use a lot.
Yes.
Yes, it is, Tom.
Yep.
Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Bisa,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Zug,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Mr. Barrington,
How you like our meeting?
Aye.
Mr. Steinhorst,
Aye.
Mr. Pinch,
Aye.
Mr. Herder,
Aye.
and Mr. Morak.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Then, at the meeting, a motion was made by Mayor Hankey and seconded by Fache to recommend to council approval of an additional $500 for the bucket truck. So I move that we increase the budget for the bucket truck by an additional $500.
Steinhorst, second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the additional $500 for the purchase of the bucket truck for the street department. Are there any discussion on that item?
Are we getting the one from Master Electric or the utility one?
Master Electric, because it's got a longer reach.
Right, right.
Yes.
Any other questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bisa,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Zog,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Mr. Barrington,
Aye.
Mr. Steinhorst,
Aye.
Mr. Pinch,
Aye.
Mr. Herder,
Aye.
and Mr. Morak.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then at the meeting, motion was made by Steinhorst and seconded by Pinch to recommend to council approval of the restoration of the old museum and library entrance doors in the amount of $5,000. So I make that motion.
Herder, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation for the restoration of the old library museum doors. Is there any question on that item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bisa,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Zog,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Mr. Barrington,
Aye.
Mr. Steinhorst,
Aye.
Mr. Pinch,
Aye.
Mr. Herter,
Aye.
and Mr. Morak.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then at the meeting, a motion was made by Zog and seconded by Barrington to recommend to council approval of the Wi-Fi bridges and DVR for the police department in the amount of $20,000. So I make that motion.
O'Shea, second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation for the Wi-Fi bridge and DVR for the additional cameras for the police department. Are there any questions or comments on that item? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bisa,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Zog,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Mr. Barrington,
Aye.
Mr. Steinhorst,
Aye.
Mr. Pinch,
Aye.
Mr. Herter,
Aye.
and Mr. Morak.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then at a meeting, a motion was made by Fache and seconded by Pinch to recommend to council approval replacement tables for the meeting room at the Library Museum in the amount of $12,000. So I make that motion.
Herter,
Steinhorst,
second.
second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation for the replacement tables at the Library Museum in the amount of $12,000. Is there any discussion on that item? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bisa,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Zog,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Mr. Barrington, did I not hear it?
Try it
Mr.
again.
Barrington?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Steinhorst,
Aye.
Yes.
Mr. Pinch,
Aye.
Mr. Herter,
Aye.
and Mr. Morak.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then I just mentioned that Finance Director Atke suggested that the next committee meeting be held once a need arises for approval of a capital equipment or a capital project item. Committee agreed with that, so we do not have another capital projects committee scheduled at this time. And that's all I have for capital projects, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Next, we've got the emergency management, the update, the mutual aid agreement between cities. Lou, if you would take that.
Thank you, Your Honor. During this COVID pandemic, Chad was able to go back and look at our mutual aid contracts and found that the last contract was signed in 1999. Since then, some things have changed, and just your overall verbiage has changed. So getting together with by the way, this is a mutual aid between the cities of New London, Wapaka, Clintonville, and Waiwega. And then once we get this done, we can go out and ask if other cities want to join in on that as well. But right now it's the 4 core cities that we're trying to work on. So this is just an update to the policy, and so that we have it in our emergency operations.
I would look for a motion to approve that agreement.
Morak?
I would move it. So I can move it.
Is there a second?
Morak, second.
Herter, second.
Okay, is there any question on the mutual aid agreement between the cities?
I just have a quick question. So Lou, if I'm correct in understanding you, we will approach like our very near neighbors like Hortonville, 5 miles down the road.
Yes,
With this in the near future.
yes.
Okay.
This was just to try to get it, sorry, we're some feedback here. So this is just to try to get it done. So we got the most immediate cities, but yeah, Hortonville, Manawa, and so on. We're gonna stretch it out further.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Bisa,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Zog,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Mr. Barrington,
Aye.
Mr. Steinhorst,
Aye.
Mr. Pinch,
I,
Mr. Herder,
Aye.
and Mr. Morak.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, we have cemetery committee minutes. Mr. Pinch?
yes. Would you like me to read the minutes?
Well, you could dispense or just mention anything important that you have in them.
Okay, so, and basically, one of the main items here was the discussion of burial fees. It has been noted that the burial fees have not, the fee schedule had not been changed since 2002. And we made a motion to increase those fees to match the other cemetery that the second one in the back there. And we were just trying to bring the fees schedule up to the current pricing comparable to other cemeteries in the area. So a motion was made by me and seconded by Stray to change the Floral Hill Cemetery fee schedule with an effective date of June 1st. We purposely waited till June 1st to give people a chance to purchase sites at the current rates if they wanted to. And then we also wanted to put that on Facebook and in the Press Star and the city's website so people are aware of these changes. So that should take effect effective June 1st. We also started to discuss the budget, and it's a little different now because the committee is in charge of the budget versus Randy. And so I have met with Judy to discuss the future budget, and obviously we haven't had any meetings since then just because of the COVID. And so we have been working towards putting a budget together, and that's going very well. And then we actually did award the contract to Tony's Cemetery Service. The official contract was signed and awarded. And I think that might be, what else we got here? Some more yet, I apologize. We also were looking at revising the cemetery rules as those had not been updated for a long time as well. There was just some discussion on it. No final decisions were made. We also are trying to discuss who is going to handle some of the committee duties as Randy is retired. And now, again, like we talked about before, budgeting and oversights of the ground maintenance of buildings and fences, etc. Missy helped set up the computer, and I thank Missy very much for all her help. She's been very helpful, and Chad has also been very helpful in helping out and providing some assistance to fixing up some of the problems that we have found. Our next meeting was scheduled, but that has been canceled now and until further notice after the COVID is done. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Morak, I just want to compliment Mike Pinch on all the work he's put in. He's put in a lot of time and effort with the cemetery board and a commission, take the minutes and all the other things that he's done. He's put a lot of time in, and he's doing a great job. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Morak.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, thank you.
One question for Mike.
Yep. Go
Mike,
ahead.
Are you looking at the decorations that are on there? Is that what you're talking about? On
As
the,
far as what was that now?
one of your regulations that you're looking at is the implementation of what they can put on headstones and stuff like shepherd hooks and that kind of stuff. Is that what you're looking at?
I don't know if we had really got into that detail on the cemetery rules yet. We just talked basically about it. Is that what you're referring to in that part of this?
Yes, yes.
If that is something that you would like us to consider, please get a hold of me and I will include that in our next meeting to discuss that.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, moving along, you've got reports and minutes from the Housing Authority, Library Museum, Police and Fire Commission, Tourism, Utility Board, and the Building Inspector. Are there any comments or questions on any of those reports? If not, we'll move right along to reports of officers. I'm up first. I am, as of April 1st, appointing to the Planning Commission, Jay Bessett, who will be replacing Steve Thompson, and Tom Spillman is a reappointment to the Planning Commission. I also have, for your listening pleasure tonight, the annual Arbor Day proclamation. And I know you've been waiting for this all year. So here we go. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produces oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our community increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas the City of New London has been recognized as Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices, therefore, I, as mayor of the City of New London, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 24th, 2020 as Arbor Day in the City of New London, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support the efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Thank you. Okay, the other thing I have is just one thing. Just don't forget to all citizens, not just council, get out and support the local businesses in whatever way you can, whether it's buying gift certificates, getting carry-out meals, stopping in for a carry-out cup of coffee and whatever. All businesses are having a rough time during this period, and they certainly appreciate your support. We want to keep these businesses viable. We want to see them reopen once this COVID thing gets all over. So I want to thank you for that. Also, this is my last meeting at City Council. I want to thank all of you for your hard work and support throughout the years, and also thank the citizens for their support during the years, and wish Mark Herter the best of luck in the future. Thank you. Next, we go to City Administrator, Mr. Leone.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was muted for a second there. You all have my report and my attachments. The only three things I wanted to bring up real quick is that we were able to work with Gratian and get all the information over to the Outagamie Landfill Committee. I am working with Ed Reed to finish up on the new job descriptions. And just because I had it in my report, we are currently, as a city, at 55% response rate. Our goal is to get 75% or better. This is in regards to the census. So we're well on our way to hitting that 75% or better. Just as a record, 75% is what the state of Wisconsin did last, 10 years ago. So if we can do better than that, well, that's our goal. That's all I have. Thank you, Your
A
Honor.
question, more
sure.
question for Lou. The job description then will probably be coming into finance and personnel
Correct.
next month or so.
Yeah, it was just one of my goals to make sure to update the job descriptions, and then it will be presented to the Personnel Committee.
Thank you.
Lou,
Okay,
Oh, I think
Lou?
someone else had a question. Yes.
don't forget number 21 there about the people working at the election.
Oh, yep. Thank you. Thank you for pointing out. First off, the staff as a whole has been wonderful going through this pandemic. You have Missy and Chad alone that have their regular duties and had to really hustle to get this Zoom going for all of us and to work through all the minor details. So thank you guys. But I also wanted to highlight Jackie and Michelle. As you all know, with the elections, there was constant changing of the rules, even down to 4 p.m. the night before the election, and we had to wait for a Supreme Court decision. So, and Jackie and Michelle sailed right through it. They easily could have cracked up on all the pressure, and yet they were smiling the entire time. So it was actually kind of a joy to hear them laughing and giggling outside this my office door. So thank you, everybody, for what you've done to keep the city functioning and running smoothly.
Thank you, Lou. Next, we move to our utility manager, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to take a moment to tell you our well 8 is now online. It replaces our well 4 at the Oshkosh Street site. It's been a long, arduous trip to get this well in service with several players that had to be changed out in this process, from DNR to engineers to pump people, but we were able to get it online. It pumps, it's set at a rate of 800 gallons a minute, which is about 350 gallons better than we were getting with the old well. It's a nice clean well. Right now, the things remain to do on that project is the transfer switch for generation, which we've not had at any of our wells in New London, but DNR required it in this well. Once that work is done, floor tiling has to be done and final site restoration. So that's a very good project to get done. Our north tower, the Northeast New London Business Center Park, had an expansion joint that was leaking. Ray's Welding came in on Monday. They're beginning to make the repairs. We hope to have all the repairs done and inspected by Friday. Then we have to go through the sanitation process to chlorinate the water tower, drain it, take 2 back T samples before it can go back into service. We hope to have it into service next week. Our electric crews, now that we're split into 2 different crews, both crews have been working on LED light replacements. In the first 2 weeks, we got over 65 lights changed out and converted from high pressure sodium to LEDs. Our goal is to get 475 lights done, and then we'll go back to setting poles again. We also had a new water operator join our water department. Matt Elba came to work on Monday. He has 20 years experience from the Appleton Water Department when he moved to New London to take our position. We also got news that the man lift and bucket for our new bucket truck is going to be beginning the work at the end of April, 1st of May, hoping to have that truck back so we can put it into service in September. We had planned to do an electronics recycling project, but the recycling company has canceled that for us. Whether it'll be rescheduled or not, I do not know the answer to that question. And our water main flushing, of course, has been postponed and canceled because of split crews. I don't want to risk flushing our system and having a broken main in the process, which does happen from time to time. And then the last most important thing, I'd like to take a moment to thank the Mayor Henke for all the support he's given utility locally, at the state level, and also at the federal level in the 35 years that I've been here. Thank you for all your service, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Director of Public Services, Mr. Hirth.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hold on a second while I get myself pinned here. Okay. First off, obviously with the COVID-19 thing going on right now, many of our programs and services have been put on hold, pool, rec programs, even aspects of the park. So Once we get past the safer at home order, we'll just look at getting our services and programs back up and running. It's really kind of a challenge for us right now just because this is our main planning session to go into the summer. So we don't know how long this is actually going yet. This is kind of pushing us back just because of planning and hiring summer staff. So it's been kind of a challenging time of season for us going into the summer season. So we're going to do the best job we can. We don't know how everything's going to go on this summer, but keep an eye on Facebook, keep an eye on the city's webpage for all the information. We'll be putting that information out there about what's going to be opening, what's going to be offered and things like that. But we're trying to do the best job we can based on the limited information we know. And then also we are still planning on doing our curbside spring yard waste pickup as of April 27th. As I drive through town, I do see people already putting brush and compost by the curb. Please, first off, don't commingle the brush and compost materials. We like to keep those separate because they do go into two separate areas. The brush goes on top of the curb, perpendicular to the curb. Compost and leaves eventually will go into the curb, but please hold off on placing that compost material in the curb until we pick up your area. You can get that information of when we pick up the different areas on the city's website. We don't want all that compost to be in the curb. Number one, if we get a big storm, that rainwater is going to wash off and go into the catch basins. It could plug up the catch basins. That's not a good thing for your area. And then number two, I mean, we could still get a large snowfall. So if we have a lot of that compost material in the curb ahead of time and we have to plow snow again, which hopefully we don't want to be pushing that material back up on the curb. So just kind of put it on the curb and wait to put that compost material into the curb once we get to your area based on our timelines. And just like Steve said, I want to thank the mayor for everything he's done, not only for the different areas, but obviously Parks and Recreation and everything else. He's been a big supporter for all that, and we appreciate your support and efforts with all that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor,
Next, we have our police.
I'd just like to ask Chad if he wants to talk a little bit about the grant that we were getting for our downtown.
Sure. Wasn't prepared for it, but we were awarded or notified that we are awarded for a $2.9 million grant for the downtown. We are still getting some information on the details for that, but the grant itself was written and awarded for reconstruction of downtown on North Water Street from the Shawano Street intersection to the Pearl Street intersection. We don't have a timeline quite for it yet, just because this is such a huge grant, and it's a DOT and federal grant, STP urban grant, and it's actually considered a DOT project once it gets going. So the cycle is 2020 to 2025, but because it's kind of considered a DOT project, they actually come on site and are managing the project in a sense. So they separate the projects into different years in that award cycle based on their availability as well. We requested to have this project happen in 2023. We have not heard if that's been awarded yet for that 2023 year. And hopefully we get that information in the next month or so. But once we have a little bit more information, we will obviously start meeting with the downtown businesses and having visioning sessions and getting input. We want to make this as smooth a process as possible, but very exciting that we've got a major grant for that downtown area, which includes, the road restoration, the curb and gutter, the sidewalk, street lights, stop and go lights. It's a major project, and we were lucky enough to get that grant. So thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Chad. And I would imagine once this gets started, you'll probably be up to your ears in paperwork.
It's going from FEMA paperwork right into that, I guess. So
you can't avoid it.
Yep.
Okay, next we have our police chief, Mr. Schlueter.
Thank you, Your Honor. We had one anniversary, Luke Curtis, 2 years. And then I just want to reach out to the public and stuff and remind them that if they have a loved one in a non-emergency situation that is over the age of 60 or has pre-existing conditions and they'd like us to check up on them, give us a call at the police department between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and we'll send an officer over there to make sure that they're okay. And we'll give you a call back just so that you know. Of course, if it's an emergency situation, you can call us 24 hours a day, but if you just want us to check up on them, give us a call during that time. Also, just wanted to touch base. We've been getting a lot of questions about what can be open, what can't be open, where can people be. And as we all know, the rules are changing every day. So we're trying to keep up with meetings and stuff with Corp Council, Department of Human Services, the District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Departments, other chiefs, different personnel, and trying to get answers for people as soon as we can. Some of it's a judgment call. I know I've had to give Earl a call a couple of times for some rulings, but we will just keep up to date on that and appreciate everyone working with us instead of working against us, and especially during these tough times, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it certainly has been an interesting time. So is there any other business to come before council tonight?
Yes, Your Honor, Morak. Couple of points. The first one, typically, the city council meets the third Tuesday in April for the reorganization meeting. Will we be having that?
I don't believe so. I think it would probably be much simpler with the reorganization stuff if you just hold that meeting off until March. But what I would like to do, and I've talked to Mr. Herder about it, is to get the committees appointed when he takes office next week, is to appoint the committees, get those out so that regular committees can meet, or the new committees can meet before the next council meeting.
Sounds
So
like
that's my suggestion.
sounds good. The second thing is, I want to thank Mayor Hankey and also Alderperson Steinhorst for all their hard work and leadership over the many years. They put in a lot of hours making the city of New London a better place to work, live and work. And I'm sure the council really appreciates it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anything else?
Mayor Henke, thank you very
Yes.
much for your 12 years of service. Or if it's more, God bless you.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned.